Okay, so part of our takeaways from the book involved looking at knowing when to persevere or strategically quit when you're involved in a new project, a career, learning new skills. Well, I'm at a different stage in my career than most of the people because I am what is normally called a short timer. So I am going to look backward and look at some of the things in my experience that have been pain points or pinch points that made me really analyze whether it was a point to continue to persevere or whether it was a good time to quit and try something different. And I centered on a place where I think a lot of us sometimes struggle. Um, as deans, part of what we need to do is to develop high performance teams, and we can't do all the jobs that need to be done in our areas, so we have to develop people who can do those jobs. And so if we're going to have high performance teams, we have to have high performing employees. So we have to be able to motivate, to assess their skills, to find out where we can coach up. All those kind of things are important for the health and well-being of our teams. So the pinch points or the pain points often come when we have someone who falls below the standards, can't meet the standards, or we might have someone that we would see with a lot more possibilities or potential than they're giving us. So both of those are areas that we have to address as managers. And sometimes it's hard to know and to make a decision as to how much time and effort do we put in to the dip in those performance issues. How much do we lean in, and at what point do we decide, I'm not getting anywhere with this, and you step back. And of course, one of the things that the author talks about is the importance of asking yourself some really critical strategic questions in deciding when to make the decision to persevere, to lean in, or when it's the best time to step back and say, this is a time to strategically quit. And so we want to think about these things in advance, or so Mr. Godin says. And one of the things he says you need to ask yourself when you encounter one of these issues is, am I panicking? Well, I kind of phrased that differently because instead of saying panicking, I wanted to say, at what point do we look at this and say, am I having an emotional response to this? Or is this a gut reaction? Or is there really a problem here? And then the second question is, who am I trying to influence in this coaching or mentoring or in performance improvement? And the question, of course, is the person who you're trying to have their performance improve. Now, one of the things he says, which I found very interesting, because he's comparing, are you trying to influence a group of people, maybe a potential market for your company, or are you trying to influence one person? And of course, usually in a mentoring or coaching situation, it's one person. And he said, influencing one person is like scaling a wall. If you get over the wall in the first few tries, then you're in. It's good. But if you don't, you'll often find the wall gets higher with each attempt. And I certainly have found that to be true. So if you have a conversation and you say, these are some areas that I would like to see you improve, you'll see improvement, or if not, you'll see a wall of defensiveness or excuses or things that probably are not going forward. And then the third question is, and this leads to what we just talked about, what sort of measurable progress do you see with this person that you're trying to coach? And he's talking about, are you going to fall behind with the performance? Are you going to stand still? Or are you going to move forward? And he says you're really not getting anywhere if you don't see some forward movement, even if it's very small. So, as a manager, as a coach, as a mentor, whatever the role might be, you want to be able to see that the person is making some forward movement, even if it's small. If the person's lagging behind, that's really a bad sign. And of course, if you're just spinning your wheels and they're satisfied with the status quo, then you're still going to stay in that dip, and you can't be the only one leaning forward. So one of the things that I have found to be helpful in situations like this, at least in my experience, has been to first of all understand where I'm coming from, be honest with myself about it, and I've come to the conclusion that I'm a developer, a teacher. Those are the kinds of skills that come very comfortably to me. So, and I thrive on seeing someone learn something or have an aha moment. So I have to guard myself against putting too much hope in that my wanting them to develop will make them develop, because sometimes it just doesn't work that way. And I found it to be very helpful so that you don't stay in your dip and repeat the same behavior over again, is to talk to somebody that you can trust their judgment and also their discretion. Oftentimes that's going to have to be someone that you're subordinate to, because you can't really talk to colleagues of the person that you're trying to coach. And I found that to be very helpful because it gets a different set of eyes on the performance issues. And then you can also get some real ways for you to lean in and to see honestly from another person's perspective whether or not your perspective is really true, really honest. I know Rita gave me some very wise advice one time. She said that you had to understand that that you didn't need to care more about the person's performance than they did. If you cared more about the performance than they did, then you were in trouble right away. So that was some of the takeaways that I took from the book, and hope that they will help you in thinking about being in the dip and leaning forward. Thank you.